today's podcast, I'm going to be talking to a person that I know pretty well over several years named Nicole. And she's going to be talking to us about some of the health issues she's been experiencing and what she has done to try and deal with these health issues. Today we're going to be focusing on food intolerances, food allergies, things that have really skyrocketed over the past 15 years or so. So I want to thank you, Nicole, for taking the time to talk to me today. And I was hoping we could start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm really happy to be talking to you tonight. So I've been having some pretty significant bowel issues on and off for approximately 4 years. Mostly just a lot of gas and bloating. I would alternate between having bouts of constipation and diarrhea, and it was all pretty horrible. My brother has a history of Crohn's disease, and I was really convinced that I had something pretty significantly wrong with me. So I had gone to 3 different doctors who basically told me to try a low FODMAP diet, that I probably had IBS. There was nothing that they could do. So I tried taking milk out of my diet because that seemed to be something that I could directly link to a lot of my problems. But to tell you the truth, I didn't really feel much better just doing that. It just always seemed like I didn't feel good. I was very lethargic. I mean, my stomach was so bloated, I just really never felt good at all. So I finally...
And you...
Go ahead.
Oh, you said that this all started about 4 years ago for you?
Yeah, just about 4 years ago. I never had any issues prior to that. I always ate a pretty healthy diet as a child, and or at least what I thought was a healthy diet until now.
Mm-hmm. Did the symptoms start slowly, or did they kind of show up all at once?
The symptoms sort of started, I guess they started sort of over the years. I kind of thought they were related to hormones. I had 3 children in a relatively short time period, and I sort of noticed that around the time of my menstrual cycle, my stomach would start to act a little crazy. You know, so I really couldn't pinpoint what it was, despite taking things out of my diet, adding things back to my diet, trying low FODMAP, drinking more water. I really truly couldn't pinpoint what exactly it was that the trigger was for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally went to another doctor who, after describing my symptoms, basically took one look at me, did an exam, and said to me, I will bet money that you have some sort of a food intolerance. And that's how my whole journey has started.
And so, you've mentioned a couple of times FODMAP, and could you just kind of elaborate on because a lot of patients are trying this, and it's actually got some some research that seems like it's a reasonable approach. Could you describe what it is or what you did initially?
Well, what I did initially, because I had absolutely no idea what a FODMAP diet even was. So, of course, the first thing I did when I left the doctor's office was hop on Google, and I researched. I actually found an app that I purchased off of the iTunes store, and basically it tells you foods that are sort of triggers for people who may have bowel symptoms. And I was really surprised to find some of the things that I was eating that I thought were healthy, good foods were on that list. So I had to do a lot of very serious searching around and trying to change my diet and change the way that I ate. And even despite all of that, it really still did not make a difference for me at all. So the app was a really important thing for me because I'm just an average person. I don't know much about, things that irritate your bowel. So the app was very, very helpful for me because if I wasn't sure about something, I could just put it into the search engine and it would tell me if it were safe or not to eat. And at this point, when I first found out about the FODMAP, I did not know about my food intolerances. So once I learned more about what I was intolerant to, it really helped me to figure out what my triggers were.
And so, so even with the FODMAP, your symptoms were still bothering you, or did it, was it pretty well controlled?
It didn't help it helped a little bit. It would depend on what I was eating. I will tell you one thing, that once I discovered my food intolerances, once I took out of my diet, it made a huge difference, and that is sugar. I was a big soda drinker. I would drink soda I would drink, first of all, I would drink a very sugary coffee in the morning, something from Starbucks that had a lot of sugar in it or a lot of syrups in it. I would drink a soda with lunch. I would drink a soda with dinner. I would drink some type of iced tea in the afternoon. I would drink a sugary juice. I was a serious sugar junkie. I loved candy. I would eat lots of candy. I liked, Skittles or Lemon Heads or whatever. I really just loved sugar. So when I found out about my food intolerance, one of them being fructose, and discovered how many things had fructose in it and how many things had high fructose corn syrup in it, my life changed dramatically just by taking out that high fructose corn syrup.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, what finally made you want to try a plant-based diet?
Well, after I found out about all these food intolerances, my doctor basically looked at me and said, you need to cut out all of your meats and some of your fruits. You need to cut out a lot of things. And I really felt like I was hit over the head because I didn't even know where to begin. So I started researching a vegan diet, and I restarted because I just felt like I needed to get back to eating pure foods. I felt like I needed to get back to eating things that were healthy and that I knew where they were coming from. I didn't have to worry about hormones being injected into my meats. I didn't have to worry about overprocessed milk and things like that. So I decided that the best option was to try a vegan diet, and it's been fantastic ever since I did it.
So what books, or did you use any books or websites, or did you find anything useful?
The most useful thing for me was actually I went onto the internet and I did a lot of researching on Pinterest to find recipes. I used two apps, like I said before. I used the FODMAP diet app, which basically if you just type in FODMAP, which is FODMAP, that was a wonderful app. And then there's another app which is fantastic for people with food intolerances called Food Monster. Because I think that a lot of people think that just because they take out gluten or they take out, certain things that's going to help you. But there are still so many other ingredients that you may not be able to eat in your foods. That Food Monster actually lets you pick and choose the things that you want to leave out or put into your diet. And it really gives you a great list and a good variety. It gives you a shopping list. It tells you exactly the foods that you can eat. It gives you recipes. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out. Because that's the hardest thing to me, was finding the right things to eat when everything seems to have bad things in it.
Well, that's really useful. I did not know about Food Monster, so that's really helpful. So when you did a plant-based diet, did you do it slowly, or did you kind of jump in all at once?
I was so tired of not feeling good that the day I got the results of my breath test, I said, this is it. Today is a new day. We're starting completely new. I had fasted the day before, for my breath test, and I immediately went on Pinterest. I had to sit there for 3 hours getting these test results, and I just researched the plant-based diet and started immediately.
So when did you really start to notice changes in your symptoms after starting the plant-based diet?
I would say within a few days. I'm not even exaggerating. When I started eating properly and really started paying attention to what I was putting in my body, I cut out all of that sugar. I don't eat any sugar at all anymore. I drink water, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I am sure to cook healthy plant-based foods every night. I bring them for lunch. I bring them for breakfast, and I noticed immediately. I mean, even my husband noticed. He's like, your clothes just seem to be fitting better. And I said, yeah, that's because I'm not bloated all the time. I'm not tired anymore. I just feel like a completely new person. And I wish that I would have known this years ago because I wouldn't have had to suffer.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So can you describe for us, what's a typical breakfast, lunch, and dinner for you before you went on a plant-based diet, and what is it now?
Well, interestingly, breakfast to me was one of the hardest things because I feel like with breakfast, everybody wants to eat, a sugary bowl of cereal or something that's, covered in pancake syrup. So for me, that was hard because I liked having my sugary cereal in the morning. I felt like the sugar gave me a boost. So that for me was something that I really had to think about. And I think that a lot of people think that you have to have a very carby breakfast, or you have to have something that's really sweet. So I will sometimes actually eat a veggie burger for breakfast. I will eat some quinoa. I'll even have some kale in the morning just to give myself a little bit of, flavor. There's so many great flavors that you can use that I didn't even know existed until I started cooking differently and having to sort of spice up things that are otherwise very plain. So for lunch was difficult for me because, as you know, I have a busy schedule and I'm working in between patients. So a lot of times I would run over to the hospital cafeteria and eat some fried chicken or whatever was quick and easy to grab, some kind of deli meat. So now that I'm cooking better, I food prep on Sundays. I cook all day long. I make a ton of really great things, but I don't have to feel rushed. So I've done a lot with kale. I really like my green vegetables now. I love lentils, any kind of beans. And I'll eat those, alternating for lunch and for dinner.
Wow. And so what do you do with the rest of your family? Like, have they adopted some of these food habits, or like how are you dealing with that?
Well, it's been a challenge with my young kids because, a lot of the foods that I'm eating are not the most appealing looking foods. So what I try to really do with them to teach them that just because it may not look very good, it tastes really good, is that I'm helping them, I'm having them help me in the kitchen. I have them, come with me to the grocery store and look at the green vegetables and look at the organic carrots and, compare things and show them that when you're eating healthier foods, you don't have to just open up the can. We can make this at home. Right. And I showed them the list of ingredients on the can of soup that they were eating, how it has all these words that they couldn't even pronounce. And now we're putting in fresh carrots and fresh onions and fresh greens, and it tastes just as good, and it's healthy.
Right. So you're being more active rather than passive about what
Absolutely,
you're eating.
because I don't want my kids to have to suffer the way that I did.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, that's definitely, even, personally, that was a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, I think especially when your family members see what's happening to you and how you're feeling, it kind of reinforces that this is a good way to go. I'm curious, what about your brother? You said you had mentioned that your brother has Crohn's, and
yes,
has he
My brother is a very stubborn person, and I tried to encourage him. I said, maybe you should think about changing your diet, but, some people are stubborn, and honestly, I think that he takes medication and he feels better, so I think that in his situation, he feels like he has his issue under control. There was nothing that was making me feel better. And, a lot of my friends say to me now, I can't believe you gave up sugar. I'm like, if it made you sick, you'd stop it. You wouldn't continue to repeat behavior that made you feel sick.
Right. Actually, you bring up a good point, because I think that a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people think the way they feel, if they feel bad, that's normal.
Right.
And when they feel for the first time, like not feeling bad, I think that's when like the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh my gosh, what I was feeling before isn't normal.
Right.
Have you spoken to your doctor about all of these things, or what does your doctor think?
Well, I'm actually, this all happened very, very recently. I actually finished my last breath test in the beginning of April, so I'm actually scheduled to follow up with her. When she first told me this, I didn't even know what to think about these food intolerances, because I was like, I literally can't eat anything. I can have ice cubes and that's it. And I really felt like, this was the end of the world, because I didn't know what I was going to eat. And honestly, it has opened up such a new world for me with different ways of cooking. I've learned to cook using other cultures, like Indian food and a lot of Mediterranean food, and the foods are delicious. You look at these things and you think that they don't taste good, but they're really very flavorful. I've learned new spices and just tons of new recipes, and I'm so glad that I found all of these things, because it's been really life-changing for me.
So what do you do now, like when you go out to eat?
Going out to eat is a little bit of a challenge, because I love to eat my Italian food with my pastas, but I just don't eat it, honestly. I'll have a salad, or I will see what they have for a vegetarian meal. Part of the problem for me is that I don't only have the sucrose and the D-xylose, I also have a lactose intolerance. And the interesting thing about a lot of vegetarian meals is that they will put some sort of a cheese onto whatever it is. So, you know, eggplant parm. Eggplant parm you think is good, but it's filled with cheese, and I don't know what's in it. So a lot of times I'll just ask them for a grilled vegetable plate or just a salad with maybe some oil and vinegar or just some lemon juice, and I just keep it very simple when I go out.
Well, one thing I do, because, you know, I face a lot of the same challenges, but in Italian restaurants, one thing that I think that a lot of people don't or overlook, they usually almost always have very good bean escarole soup. And most places, the base is a vegetable broth. It's not chicken. Some places it's chicken, but most places it's actually vegetable broth. And that, I mean, it's like this untapped treasure, because that bean escarole soup it's satisfying.
Delicious.
It's delicious, right? So do you, like, given how you feel, I mean, it's always hard to predict the future, but do you ever see yourself going back to the way you ate before, or?
I honestly can tell you that I don't, and I'll give you an example of why. I order my coffee every day on my way to work, and I've changed over from drinking a super sugary drink to actually having coffee with coconut milk, and that is it. So I order using an app, and I get to the store the other day, and the size of my coffee was different. And the guy's like, oh, you know, you must have ordered the wrong size. And I said, oh, yeah, I must have. I get to work, I drink my coffee, and I was in agony all day. And I said, what did I eat? I can't imagine what I didn't eat anything different. What did I do? Something must be wrong. So the next day, I order my coffee. I go to Starbucks, and the guy at the desk says to me, is there a reason that you changed from, you know, coconut milk back to regular milk? And I was like, you've got to see this. I drank regular milk, and I was dying all day. So for me, it's just not worth feeling sick. I don't even miss the foods that I wasn't eating because I was feeling so sick that I will never go back to eating those things again.
Does your extended family have anything to say about this, or?
My family, my mom was very supportive because she knows the tears and just the agony that I was in when I was really not feeling well. So my mom was very supportive, and she has actually started to eat a more plant-based diet as well. So that's wonderful, and I'm so happy that she's doing that. A lot of my family, you know, growing up in an Italian family, food is everything. I mean, we eat a lot of not good for you foods. So for my family, they're like, well, what are you going to do? You know, you can't eat. What are you going to eat? I'm like, I can eat. I just have to eat things that are not what you're eating. So it's been a challenge for them, and especially when we go out, they're like, oh, you know, Nicole can't eat anything. She's going to have to, you know, eat a bowl of ice cubes. But you know what? I don't even care. I just laugh it off. I will never go back to eating that way. It's just not worth it.
Oh, gosh. Well, you know what? I think it would be really cool if we touched base again, maybe in like 6 months or so, just to catch up and you know, just see how things are going.
I would love to. I honestly, everyone that I talk to that tells me about their belly problems, I'm like, you should go see if you have food intolerances because I never knew. No one ever even mentioned it to me.
Yeah. Or, you know, I'll throw it out there. I think someone could just try going on a plant-based diet for a month and maybe even avoid all the testing and the, you know, see if,
I think it's a very scary concept for people. And it takes a lot of dedication. You know, it's a lot easier to just run to your fast food store than it is to sit home all day on Sunday and food prep. And I really think, and you know with your patients too, it's just a very challenging thing for people to eat healthy. And I just think that there needs to be more awareness for people that it's not that hard to do it. You just have to make the lifestyle change. Right.
So could you say that app again, the one that you used to help you kind of pick the foods that you need?
Sure. Well, the FODMAP diet is a great one, and then the other one is just called Food Monster, and it's an app. I believe it's $2.99 on the App Store.
Okay, but that's $2.99 well spent. You know, you'll get a lot back in return if
absolutely.
If
I mean, I would have spent $200 if someone. You know, I think that this is just helpful for people who just don't know where to start. You know, and it's just, it's easy to do. It's at your fingertips. It doesn't require a lot of thought. You can just type things in and it's there.
No, that's great.
Helpful.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was not aware of that. So anything else you want to tell people who are listening who might be suffering from the same problems?
I think that we just need to be more aware of our bodies. Just look at the back of whatever the product is that you're eating and look at some of the ingredients that you're putting in your body. If you can't pronounce them, it's probably not something you should be eating. And if you look at the canned soups, you can make them at home cheaper, and it'll last you for days. You know, so it's a lifestyle change.
And they taste better.
They do taste better. They really do taste better. And I've noticed that, you know, if I've been eating so clean that if I eat something that maybe is from a can, just if I'm, you know, cleaning up from something that the kids are eating, it just doesn't even taste good. It truly doesn't.
Right, no. I agree.
So it's worth the lifestyle change. You will feel so much better. You'll have more energy. You won't feel lethargic. Your belly won't be bloated all the time. It's one of the best choices I've ever made.
Oh, that's great. Well, Nicole, I want to thank you so much because you are really, you're inspirational. And I think...
Well, thank you.
So many people have food intolerances now. I mean, it's like every patient I see has got some issue. And I think that, you know, listening to you will definitely motivate a lot of people to try it at least, you know?
Well, I really do hope so because it's really something. And I agree. I just think that we live in a society where fast is better, and we're just poisoning our bodies. And I think that this is just the beginning of what's going to happen if we don't change the way that we eat.
You're right. Well, thank you, Nicole, so much. And
no problem.
I'm going to touch base with you again in a couple of months, okay?
All right, great. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Hi. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. This is Dr. Padma Garvey. If you want more information, check out my website, www.drpadmagarvey.com, drpadmagarvey.com. I also have a YouTube channel with lots of videos and a podcast series on iTunes under Dr. Mom. The music for this podcast was courtesy of bensound.com.